to episode 7 of Creative Youth Studio. This is going to be such a good episode.
We're so glad you're here. Oh, my name's Emily, by the way.
And I am Katrina. And this week's episode is going to be on inclusivity, which is, and I wouldn't call it a new topic, but it's definitely a really interesting topic and something that has really surged in recent days and years and months. So I'm really excited to be talking about this.
It's super important to us to talk about things that are really relevant today. And in light of recent events, we want to make sure that we're giving space to create spaces for inclusivity and help educate you guys more about how you can be more inclusive in theater.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you so much. And take it away, Imahni.
What's up, y'all? Today we have Hope-Elizabeth Dagdagan, a youth actor from San Diego. And we're going to be talking to her today about how she feels about the inclusivity in casting here in San Diego. How you doing, Hope?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thank you for coming today.
Of course. Happy to be here.
So, just a couple questions to ask you today about how you felt as far as inclusivity and how you've been treated as far as casting has been in San Diego. But just for a little bit of context for our viewers today, how long have you been acting?
I've been acting for about 6-7 years. Yeah, 6-7 years.
6-7 years. So that would mean, where did you first start doing theater? What school or a theater company? Where did you start?
I started acting at school. So I go to SCPA. It's the School of Creative and Performing Arts in 6th grade. That's when I started taking acting classes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, right on. So just to start off, do you, or did you, rather, well, I'll ask you, did you and do you see yourself in a lot of productions that San Diego theater companies produce? And that includes schools. So your school, when people pick a show, do they pick shows that you're able to see yourself in? Have you ever had a problem with seeing yourself in productions? I know a lot of people, when there's shows like, oh, we're producing classics, right? I know a lot of people of color take issue with the term classic, right? Because it initially didn't involve us. So how do you feel about that?
I have mixed feelings about that because at my school, they are often pretty good at including people of color, but sometimes it does feel like when they're looking at a role, they're looking for a specific kind of face, and my face doesn't match that all the time. So it kind of depends on who the director is and what show they're doing. But yes, often when we are doing the classics, they are looking for lighter, fair-skinned people, and that's not my face.
Well, so aside from not directly seeing yourself, right, in this mental thing, have you ever been directly discriminated against in casting, even if it wasn't like, oh, not like a movie style discrimination, but there always is that in between the lines microaggression or things that we sense in the room sometimes. Have you ever felt that? And if so, when?
Yeah, I think it does happen a lot. I think the first thing that came to mind was like in the room, I was auditioning for a chorus line somewhere, and it felt like, because one of the characters is Asian, it felt like I was competing to be the best of the Asians rather than the best of the white people. And it felt like they were really looking at my skin and the shape of my eyes, and it just felt like so boxed in because the other characters aren't necessarily Caucasian, and it just felt very, very closed and kind of weird. And then I think that feeling, it just felt amplified in that moment because it felt familiar. Like I've felt that at basically every other audition I've went to. Like I'm trying to compete to be the best of the Asians to prove that the Asians could be in the show at all, rather than just the best of the best, like if that makes sense. Like it was a completely different arena that we're in. Yeah, I don't know.
It's sort of like, so when you are auditioning for a show, it's more auditioning for the Asian role instead of just auditioning for a role, just being an actor. It's always got to be that actor instead of just an actor. Is that what you mean?
Exactly. Yeah, like
Mm.
it has to be the Asian role, and if it's not, it's like we're gonna pick the best of the Asians, and then they're gonna be in the same rink with the rest of the people to be whatever role that is. And then often, even if we do get past that point, it's not the Asian person or the person of color.
So what do you think that schools and youth theater companies and even professional theater companies can do in town to make that would make you feel more included, or that would make you feel better, or that would make you feel like you weren't competing to be the best Asian in the room, right? Instead of, and more of just an actor that is present and ready to work and to play just somebody other than themselves in general. What do you
Yeah.
think can be done?
Um, it's a hard question because I don't exactly know how to. I think like with the chorus line audition that I was talking about, that one in particular, they grouped all the Asians together, and that just felt like blatantly like, okay, I see what you're doing. But I think other than that, it's hard to tell what a good solve for that is because it's not always such a clear distinction between the Asians and the rest of the people. So I think a good way to sort of like solve that problem is just try I just try your best to not like make that distinction between people. When you pair people up, don't just have the colored people paired with the colored people. Like it's more I don't know how to say it, but like whenever you go in for a callback, you can just tell like the ratio of white people to colored people is intense. It's crazy. I think I don't know. It's hard to say what a good fix would be, but I think
Well, let me ask you this. Let me specify it a bit more as far as casting would go. What if, like, so we have two sides, right? Or maybe these aren't the two only sides, but just for this context, don't do classics anymore, or productions that specify that you need this race to and this includes a lot of shows, right? A lot,
yeah.
and a lot of favorites, right? Or the other side of the coin, which is kind of maybe what I'm picking up, but let me know if I'm reading you wrong. Colorblind casting, and then what is that? Then you end up with, then what the possibilities of what you could end up with could be positive, but also you could have some negative outcomes. For instance, if somebody is doing Mulan and the actor from Mulan is somebody that's Caucasian, that could be that somebody could have, we could take a real issue to that. So what do you think? Out of these two sides, what is the lesser of the two evils? And then we'll go from there in terms of solidifying further.
I want to say the lesser of two evils is to go with the colorblind casting, because some classics, they are classics for a reason. You need those shows. Like things like King and I, like that's one of those shows that everybody knows, but at the same time, if you colorblind casted that, it would be really weird. So I think I'm going to go with colorblind casting. I think that's just the lesser of two evils. Yeah.
How would you define, like, if a show were to be cast in a colorblind fashion? I know that there's like sometimes it doesn't go both ways. Like, so when we say colorblind casting, we aren't meaning, okay, now you can have a white Mulan, but we're more meaning now you can have a Filipino Mary Poppins. Is more of, it's not like this, oh, it's going to go both ways now, which I think a lot of people think, but more of, we're more opening it up to people of color. Is that what you would say, where you would want to go with that colorblind casting, or where you'd like it to go?
Absolutely, because there is a very limited number of shows and productions that include colored people. Like, I was talking with some of my other Asian friends, and you can count the number of like Asian musicals or Asian plays on one hand. Like there's Miss Saigon, King and I, Allegiance, and then I think I'm missing a few maybe, but like that's limited compared to the vast amount of plays and musicals written for Caucasian people. Like if we just opened up those shows to colored people, inclusivity would be so much easier, and it wouldn't feel like you're whitewashing the shows that were meant for colored people.
Yeah, so I think that part of that distinction is like colorblind casting, not whitewashing. So like
Yes.
we're like, yeah. Or
Yeah.
so maybe I wonder if the term is not colorblind casting. Now that I think about it, as I talk to you, is it inclusive casting? We think about it more now because colorblind casting is such a vague term that could be. What do you think
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah, I think. Hold on, what was the term that you used that wasn't whitewashing? You just said it. Hold on.
Inclusive casting, something like, oh, colorblind casting could be used to whitewash, but inclusive casting is more of a specific to opening up those classics to
Yes.
people of color, you think?
Yeah, I think so. Inclusive casting is much better. Yeah.
Do you
'Cause-
find it, sorry, go ahead.
No. Go on. Go on.
I was going to ask you, do you find it like, do you not seek out, or not seek out, but would you not want to play roles like you mentioned King and I, which does have specific casting? Do you avoid shows like that cast you as an Asian person specifically, like not just an actor? Like I know for some of the viewers out there, Hope and I, we have acted before when we were in Crucible, and Hope played Mrs. Proctor. And obviously, there's no race really written out for that role, at
Yeah.
least as I could tell from the script. So there's scripts like that, but then there's scripts like King and I, or even Chorus Line, which isn't a show that really focuses on Asian struggle or culture or story necessarily, but there is a role, Connie, and that is normally played by an Asian person. How do you feel about roles like that and participating in roles like that? Like, are they negative? Do you think that they depict negatively or very stereotypically? As far as eliminating those would go.
I think, I mean, well, first of all, I personally don't think that I can afford to avoid those shows, if that makes sense. Like, if my coloredness will get me work, like, I'm gonna use that to my advantage. But sometimes it does feel like those shows depict things negatively. Like, I'm kind of familiar with Miss Saigon, the character Kim. On one hand, it's such a strong character and strong person, but at the same time, sometimes if I really think about it, she's still the idea that Asian people, especially from foreign places, are kind of this little flower that needs to be protected, and she's trying to make it to America, and she's just been waiting for that white man to save her, and it kind of feels like that if you think about it. But at the same time, like, that role is a fantastic thing to play. So I don't think that it's something I would avoid. It's something that I would want to depict, but there is kind of a blurred area in there because there are certain stereotypes that are being depicted. And in King and I as well, like it's the idea of like the white savior, like the Asian people are barbaric, and then they needed this white woman to come and teach them how to be proper and stuff. And there are the Asian representation sometimes is a little negative, but at the same time, it is representation. So it's weird because representation is really good because I got to see people who look like me on stage, and it gave me that feeling of that could be me. I could be on that stage, but at the same time, the stereotypes that are perpetuated in those shows are a little negative.
That's so interesting. It's almost like no press is bad press. It's kind of that
Yeah.
rock and a hard place that minorities have been put into. It's like we want to be seen on stage. Oh, but like almost like that was so.
Yeah.
Oh, that
You're
was like
close.
it's something, you know.
You're so close. Yeah.
Yeah. That's tough. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today and talking to me talking with me about that today. Just being open. I'm pretty sure a lot of viewers out there probably related to a lot of what you said and what you talked about. I know I did. You know, as you were talking about it, I was like, yeah, you know, I'd never really thought about that, like seeing myself on stage, but not quite seeing myself on stage. It's
Yeah.
very interesting perspective, Hope. Well, thank you very much, and
Thanks for having me.
of course. Back to you guys.
Thank you so much, Imahni. That was really informative.
Yeah, definitely, man. I definitely learned a lot. So next we will have Jada.
Hello, Creative U Studio family. I am Jada here with Bryan Barbarin. Hello. I'm very excited for this interview.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is a very exciting program. I looked you up online and I was like, oh, wow, look at all these wonderful people on here.
Okay, so first just tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do. Let the people know a little bit more about you.
Well, I love long walks on the beach. I'm a local San Diego actor slash musician slash entertainer. I was born in San Diego and I've worked here for a very long time. I used to work a lot in the theaters, doing musical theater mainly as my bread and butter, but I do love the classics, the Shakespeare, and all that good stuff. And I did work for Signet Theater for a long time doing two-man Shakespeare shows, so I got all that stuff in my wheelhouse. I work for the San Diego Zoo and the Safari Park, and I play in two bands currently. We play a lot in San Diego. We play a lot outside of San Diego. So I've kind of run the gamut of entertainment in San Diego.
That's so cool. What do you do at the zoo?
So I play a character called Dr. Zoolittle. So I go into schools and we teach about they teach about conservation, and I tell silly jokes and make silly faces.
That sounds so fun.
It's a really good gig. I love animals. I happen to love animals, so it's a fun thing, and I'm very passionate about the youth in general. So I'm glad I can be a part of getting kids excited about wildlife and conservation and what they can do as individuals to help.
Definitely, that sounds so cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so this interview is about inclusivity in, like, I guess the acting musical theater industry.
Yeah.
So my first question is, do you have a story about being like Black in theater? Because I have stories of when I was doing junior theater here in San Diego and just being like, doing theater was kind of my realization that, oh, you're Black. And I was like, yes, I am.
It's one of those things where you have to kind of take a hard look at how society views you as an actor, because you have to set yourself up to audition correctly. So the more that you think about it, the more you go, oh, I see, I'm put in this box. I see I can really only be these three things in these people, which is crazy great singer, crazy great dancer, or incredibly traumatic actor. Like there was like nothing in between. It's like, all right, either we're going to do a show about your trauma, we're going to do a show where you just go through the rafters and you have a lot of fun and everyone claps their hands, or you can do some stuff where you dance and show off for people. So it's like you start seeing these roles consistently being put in your face. You're like, oh, okay, this is what you see me as. This is what kind of everyone sees me as. So yeah, there's plenty of stories. I'm trying to think of like of anything in particular. Luckily, I've come from a place in San Diego where people have reached out to me and tried to put me in places where I don't belong. So a lot of my stories has to do with not technically the community, but the people the audience in the community, and the people who are observing the show. That's where a lot of my frustration comes from. Comes from donors who assume that I don't have a father, who assume I come from a broken family, who assume I'm like all these things that they think Black men are. And they say, wow, you talk so well. You're this, you're that. It's like, you really have no idea where, like, my dad came to every single one of my shows. My mom came to every single one of my shows. They were there. They were there for me. But just having that on a consistent basis of people talking down to you and acting like you're this monolith, it's really frustrating. It's really frustrating to hear you speak so well, so elegant. Wow, you talk so different. Like what should I talk like? What do you think I should sound like? Frustrating thing to hear, for sure.
Yes, definitely. It's like being typecasted for life.
For life, yeah,
yes.
And that's exactly what this is,
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay. We're gonna go bad before we go good. What is like probably one of the worst experiences you've had, like working as an actress or as an actor, where they really just did that to you, like all the things you explained?
You know what? I have a lot of, and I've got a lot of respect for donors who are in town, but I think that it's a consistent thing with me of, hey, I want to take you out to lunch, and I want to help you. I want to do this, and I don't need help. Like, I don't want people to pity me, and that's after every show, somebody will come up and do that, and hopefully maybe they reach out to somebody who needed that help. But that's a weird thing to say to somebody.
Yeah.
Like, don't just assume that I'm some sort. Like, I love what I do. I love working in this community in San Diego for these people. I love it. It's one of my favorite things to do. So don't assume that I'm stuck in a position that I don't want to be.
Okay, what is one of the best experiences that you had? It could be like a role or a company.
So best experience I've ever had, and this is part of this inclusivity, was one of my very first shows. I auditioned at Lamb's Players Theater. We had the whole Black ensemble from Ragtime. Debbie Smith had just reached out, had done a show there, and invited us all out to audition for the chorus for Hello Dolly. So I'm with a bunch of dancers. I'm a big guy. I move well, but I'm not a dancer. And we're going through this audition, and I'm taking every note that has ever been given to me of, like, just be you. Like, don't try to be something. Don't try to fit in anything. Just be 100% you. And that's what I did from the get-go. Even though it was a dance, I'd add a little, like, funny flair. Or when they ask, like, special skills, they're going down the line, people are saying, "Oh, I do tumbles. Oh, I could do a backflip. Like, I juggle." I was like, I could throw people. Like, I could physically throw people. And they're like, "What? That's a weird thing to say." But like, because I was being so uniquely me, Colleen Kohler Smith, who works at Moonlight now, she took the directors aside and said, "You have to." I know we said we were taking 6 people, but we're taking 7 now. Like, you have to make a role for this guy, and that right there is what it means to be inclusive. When somebody reaches out and says, they have to be a part of this, that person has something, and it's beyond what you can see in them. Like, how can we make it work for them? That's what it needs to be. You need to have someone with that passion to say, okay, how can I make this show work for you? Instead of, hey, you know what? There's a part in here that needs somebody who sings through the rafters. I know this person who could do that. Let's bring them in. Like, instead of using you as a as a tool, they're building things into you. They're passionate about you and building your career, and that's super important.
Yes, definitely. I love being a part of projects where they let you add your own flair to it and just be
Yeah.
more you. I feel like it's more authentic that way. I have like friends who are actors who
Hmm.
appreciate more of the structure type of like
Uh,
it has to be this way, but I like personally like to just go do myself with it, and I feel like
yeah.
it's more believable because it is me in a way.
You're creating something with the director, and that's the beautiful
Mhm.
thing about that relationship is being able to present yourself in a way, and then that director saying, okay, cool, this and a little bit of this, and that's what makes real good storytelling work.
Yes, definitely. Okay. Do you believe that finding roles is harder as a black person?
Yes, it is, and I'm gonna say even more so as a black woman, and I'm gonna say that in musical theater and theater in general, women have a very difficult would have a more difficult time than men finding roles. Um, Luckily for me, I'm a character-y type of actor, so very often the character will represent me. So people will be able to say, hey, this guy will think of it. But think about like leading man type, how many shows are really written for black men? Not many that aren't, color purple, whatever it might be, that are specific about the black experience. So taking something like, Music Man or Carousel or one of these old classic musicals and then putting a black person in the lead always is going to turn some heads and make people say, well, I don't really know. It's not going to be your first assumption. Or it's not going to be your first thought. So getting those roles is going to be more difficult. Um, and as for being a woman, you're in an oversaturated um, uh, fields. There's so many women who can do so many amazing things. And that was one of the very first things I noticed in musical theater. When a musical director goes through a show, they will plunk out every single note for the men 3-4 times until they get it right, because they're lazy and they don't read music. They're the worst. But women, they say, hey, everyone got their part? Okay, good, go. And they every single one of them reads music and they know how to do it because they have to. So yeah, there is definitely less roles for colored people, and I'd say even more so for women of color.
Definitely. Totally agree. I feel like being going into the audition room too and just seeing like the difference between men and women, and I'm like, okay, yeah, these you know what you're doing, and
Yeah,
then you gotta practice it a couple times.
they gotta walk them through it, hold their hand too. So it's like,
Yes, literally.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Do you have like a show in mind of like keeping like inclusivity in mind where it's like this has gone wrong? Like definitely not. Like this was not it. I am so sorry.
Okay. All right. Can I just say, like, every production I've ever seen of Once on This Island, probably,
Oh,
it is the biggest perpetrator of this is so wrong. And I get it. It's a lovely musical. It's lovely. But if you do not have the cast to do it, don't do it. And there's another thing. Okay, cool. So you want to do a black show, great. But if you live in some place where you don't have any black actors, then don't do it. Like it's not you shouldn't do that kind of stuff. And yeah, I'm trying to think of what other like forced
that goes
situations.
with like hairspray too. When like
Oh my
they
gosh,
try to
when
do
there's like
hairspray, it's like think about it for a second. Is that really a good idea?
you don't have a black chorus. You have the two black people who you knew could sing those two songs, and then you're like, oh, I guess we'll get all the other people of color to be the people of color chorus. That's what it's going to be. It's like, yeah, okay, I get it, I get it.
Yes, definitely.
But all those shows are very specific about race. And
Mhm.
there comes the problem that most of the shows that we do are going to be based on our race and our look and our whatever trauma or whatever experiences over there, instead of doing a show about a human experience, or just about love or about desire or whatever it might be. That's the real problem. until we can start doing these stories on the regular with just a human human actor and human story that all humans can agree with, then it's going to be the same thing over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. That's what I liked about Hamilton, because it was very inclusive, and like it wasn't based on their race, when like in reality, yes, they're all white, they're the founding fathers, but it wasn't about that. It was about the people, and anybody could play them.
And it's about your talent level in Hamilton. That's what I like about it, because anyone can play any of those roles, but who can chop it up like that? Who could take the words, the poetry, and that high level of music and dance and put it all together? Mm-hmm. That's a really cool. Hamilton was, as many flaws as people could talk about it, it was a very, very smart play, and a great way to get people of color out to the forefront.
Yes, definitely. Okay, imagine you're talking to like casting directors and like owners of theater companies. What can they do to like kind of diversify their companies and their cast? Like, what advice do you have for them?
Diversify. So I'd say number one, we gotta stop going off of what the donors want and what your built-in audience wants. And that is going to solve a lot of problems that theaters are already having, where the audience is dying off, or they're not coming in. They're not getting new people coming in because they keep on bending the knee to the same people. They say, hey, I want to see this. I want to see this again. Like, do I have to see a show where they rap? Like, do I have to see this? Like, yeah, you do. You do have to see it. I'm sorry, but it's new and it's exciting. And until they're able to break out of that cycle of, well, I've got to make money. I've got to make the board happy. I've got to do this and do things that are passionate and bringing people in. Theater is going to die. Like, it's been dying, and it's gonna fade away unless they can bring in some sort of new audience. And that doesn't mean it changes the landscape of theater. Theater is what it is. It's storytelling through it's storytelling. That's it. Through whatever means you can. So that would be my biggest thing, is stop following the donors and start following the artist. Start finding artists who want to do that, because there are people out there who are doing things that they're so passionate about, and passion begets passion. If someone is very passionate about a project, they're going to bring people who are passionate about that, and that is going to show in your theater, and in your productions.
Totally agree. I think that's all the questions I have for you. That was so interesting. I love this conversation. It wasn't even an interview. It was a conversation.
A good old conversation.
Yeah.
What about you? What do you want to see in the theater?
I think
young actress of the future, young actor of the future.
Totally agree. And just like you said, I really liked what you touched on, like just making roles not about the people. I feel like it'll just help a lot. And just like not necessarily having, this person has to be white, or this person, and then just making it so like fluid and like who can play those roles. And because if you can sing the notes, if you can get there, if you can dance the dance, then why can't you play the role?
People have to see it to accept it. And the more you talk about it, the more someone says, oh, there's a black person playing Cinderella, like that doesn't work, like of course people are going to say that. They're always going to say that. But when that person shows up and does that role and they do it beautifully, they can change that person's mind. Or maybe they won't, but who cares? Like, you gave them an opportunity to shine in a cool way. And that's what this is about, giving people opportunities to shine. And the more we do that, the more star power we're going to have.
Definitely. That reminds me of the casting of the live action of Little Mermaid, how Halle Berry's like was playing it, and everyone was like, no, that. I was like, I'm such a huge fan of like both of the sisters, and her voice is so angelic. It's literally perfect for Ariel. So I was confused why people were so mad at the casting.
It's a mermaid. Like, it's a mythical creature. And here's why they're mad, though, because it represented them. and it represented something that was very close to them. And that's where the cross happens. Where we say representation matters, and they say, no, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't, you're not really yes, you are, because you felt so strongly about this mermaid with red hair that there had to be this red hair lady that you dreamed about your whole life or whatever it might be. But a lot of us don't have that. We don't have someone to be like, yeah, this Disney princess. I had the side character from Dumbo or something, like the crows from Dumbo. I was like, they're really cool. Like, that's Baloo the bear. Like, yeah, he's a cool guy. Like, that's what I'm relating to. So that's what it is. It's taking away their representation. But that's not what it's about. This is just about letting somebody else have it for 2 seconds. That cartoon still exists. It will exist forever and ever and ever and ever. You can never take that away from me. Never.
Just go rewatch the old one.
You don't even gotta watch this one.
Yes. In like the comments, they were saying, well, if a white person played Tiana, you would be mad. But then like a bunch of people were like, but Ariel's a fish.
Yeah, it's a little different and not specific.
Yeah.
And it's always the one. They're always like, well, here's this one example that you had in the past 100 years. What if we took this one example from you? It's like, well, yeah, if we had 1,000 examples and you took one of them, I wouldn't be mad. But we have one example, and it's very specific. And of course, it's about being a person of color, because they don't tell stories about us unless it's about that. So it is what it is, y'all.
Yeah. Just don't watch it if you don't want to.
Don't watch it. Don't bother.
But I'm going to, and I'm going to love it, because Halle Berry is literally a goddess.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this interview. I honestly loved it. It was so great.
Thank you for having me. This was lovely. I love seeing the music behind you, and I love that you're doing this project, and it makes me excited.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that interview, Jada. That was great. Super insightful. So now we are going to go into our opportunities section. So this week we have a few new opportunities. So firstly, we have the Fancy Expo. Fancy stands for Focused and Naturally Confident Youth. And there are programs to motivate girls into academic excellence, which is through the form of scholarships, and also as a source of education and the arts. Essentially, this expo will have guest speakers, live performances, and help provide girls with the essential skills that they need to become leaders in their community. It is a virtual fair, create an environment that promotes young leaders. It is an amazing way to empower youth. And it is Saturday, April 24th from 10 to 12. Definitely check it out if you're interested.
And if you're interested in taking any virtual classes this spring, you can check out San Diego Junior Theater at juniortheater.com. And they are running virtual spring classes this spring, giving you access to all sorts of educational opportunities about theater.
Yeah, definitely. I have a special place for a junior theater in my heart, so definitely check those out. So also for our high school and college students out there, we have a scholarship from Against the Grain Productions. It's an artistic scholarship for youth who are at least 25% of Asian or Pacific Islander ethnicity. And you must be a citizen or legal resident of the US, but essentially it is for students who are enrolled in college and are pursuing a career or major in performing arts, visual arts, journalism, or mass communications. So definitely check it out. It's $1,000 to go towards your college education, which will help you become a great artist in the community. So definitely check that out, againstthegrainproductions.com.
And to wrap up this week's opportunities, here at the Old Globe, we have extended our deadline to apply for the Summer Shakespeare Studio, which is actually how Katrina and I met last summer. And wouldn't you say, Katrina, that we had a great time?
Yes. Oh my gosh. It was amazing. Definitely apply.
Apply. We spent so much time being able to learn about Shakespeare and how that connects to music and dance and acting and voice techniques. It was so much fun. So apply today.
Yes, apply. Okay. So now we're going to move into our activity. So our activity is a little different this week because of the topic that we explored. So we are going to provide you guys with some resources to do further education on inclusivity in your community beyond the world of theater. So I have a few movies that are near and dear to me. So The Hate You Give, it's a beautiful movie based on Angie Thomas's book. Yes, that is about a girl who witnesses the death of her childhood best friend at the hands of a police officer. And it is a beautiful way that explores political issues through the perspective of a teenage girl. So 100% check that out. Also, 13th, which is a documentary about how today's prison system disproportionately affects African Americans. I watched this back in June of last year, and it is so informational, so educational. It is amazing. 100% watch that. And Hidden Figures. Hidden Figures is a movie to watch with your family. Like it's amazing. And it's based on a true story about African-American female mathematicians in NASA who were crucial in the early years of the United States space program and were essential in getting men up on the moon eventually. So those are 3 movies, all about the African-American life, and definitely check those out. And also Minor Feelings in the wake of Asian American and Pacific Islander hate. We also wanted to point out some of those resources. So Minor Feelings is a book that explores cultural messaging versus lived experience through the Asian American perspective. Minor Feelings, and any other books that you can check out or movies about the Asian American Pacific Islander experience, check those out. Blah, blah, but go ahead.
In addition to movies and books, we also have a few Instagram accounts that we think you should follow. So the first one is So You Want to Talk About, and the second one, Impact. Both do an excellent job covering a wide variety of topics, so you can learn about a bunch of different marginalized communities and what you can do to help. And those are 2 great, very widely sourced and different topics Instagram accounts to help educate yourself. And you can also check out It's Feminism if you'd like to learn more about the female experience and how you can help women. And in the wake of AAPI events recently, we also recommend that you check out AAPI Women Lead, which is another great example in looking at the Asian American experience and that of Asian American women specifically here in America today.
Yes. Well, thank you guys so much. Check out all these resources that we gave you if you have the time, of course. And also just try to make the efforts to promote inclusivity in your own life, whether it's just recognizing where there are issues prevailing or just being more aware and spreading awareness to other people. So, but thank you guys so much for watching, and yeah, we hope you enjoyed.
Yeah, thanks so much. And we hope you check out those resources because a little understanding goes a long way.
See you guys next week.
Yeah, see you next week.